Welcome in, everybody. All right, so if you have watched my series on the Woolworth rolls, I had purchased two rolls, one standard and one limited. And we went through the coins and we did kind of a preliminary screening, if you will. And I've narrowed it down to these four coins. Now, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to start with L2. This came from the limited roll. This was a fan favorite. This one was a coin that a lot of people that, commented on the videos mentioned that they liked that coin, or they felt that that one was worthy of further examination. Another coin that got a lot of attention and I think is at least suitable for a preliminary screening is S3 from the standard roll. It's an 1899 New Orleans. Then the surprise out of the standard roll was S18. This is a beautiful little 1885 with gorgeous toning that we'll look at under the scope. And I think you'll enjoy the way that shows up. And then last but definitely not least, I believe the best coin out of both rolls was L7 from the limited roll. This 1879 is one I'm kind of on the fence about, but we'll discuss that a little bit more once we get down to it. The issue is we're going to look at each coin. We're going to start out on microscope number 1. We're going to get a nice full coin view and some nice luster evaluation. I can then step up the magnification a little bit. Then we'll bring it over to the second microscope, where we will then step up the magnification even more and get a pretty good read of the actual surface. So at that point, we'll be in a better position to make a determination as to whether or not a given coin is worthy of submission for grading, or is there something that we can identify that would essentially eliminate it from consideration. So let's get started with L2. Like I said, this was one of the fan favorites from the roll review videos. Now, this one is an 1882S, and hang on one second, get some better lighting on that. There we go. It's got a really nice luster quality to it, and I think the surfaces really do it justice. It's hard to find any real flaws with this coin, so I'm just going to kind of let it speak for itself. Like I say, the luster on that, the cartwheel is beautiful. There are a couple of minor abrasions on the cheek, but nothing really serious. Now, the reverse, again, beautiful cartwheel luster, a nice strike, and again, you can see why this was one of the fan favorites. Yeah, it's hard to find fault with that coin. All right, let's bring her over here. And let's get a little better view of what we're working with here. All right, so we do have a couple of minor dings on the neck there. Couple of minor hits to the cheek, but overall, nothing terribly serious. And nothing really concentrated in any one area. I think this one is definitely one we may have to consider submitting. Because as I look through the fields, I'm really not seeing anything that would disqualify it. Again, a couple of minor marks right there, but not anything horrific. A decent enough strike. And the only real question is whether or not those marks on the face would limit the grade to something below Mint State 63. Because honestly, otherwise, I think this one may have to go in for submission, or at least consideration for submission, because we've got to run the math. We've got to run the expected grade, factor in the cost of grading, and then determine whether or not it's worth that additional expense for the potential premium it might bring. But I have to say, overall, this is a pretty decent looking coin with no real disqualifying marks that I'm seeing. Yeah, a little bit right there under the wing. But, okay, so that is L2. And we're going to keep that one as a definite consideration for possible submission. Excuse me. All right, let's move on to the next coin. This is from the standard roll. This is S3, an 1899 New Orleans. And looking at the luster, it looks pretty good to me. All right. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I've been trying to get the chat going. There we go. Okay, so like I say, what we've got. All right, why is that not welcoming everybody? All right, so if you have watched my... Okay, that's my problem. All right, now, this 1899 O, like I say, has some real nice luster pattern to it. Couple of marks. But for New Orleans, it looks like we've got a relatively decent strike. Not pancake, not fully developed, kind of somewhere in between, which is very, very typical for a New Orleans Morgan. And let's take a look at the other side. So again, I mean, we're looking at really nice luster and a pretty decent looking surface on the reverse. Yeah, I'm not upset with this coin. So all right, let's put her on the other scope. All right, now this is where I think the issue is going to come in, because when you look at the face and the cheek, you're gonna see a little bit of chatter and some marks that I think might get to the point where they would limit the grade on this. You got a nice little smudge out there. You've got some rub marks on the chin and the jaw. You've got some indentations. Not the best strike in the world, but also not the worst. But then you've got some noise up here in the field as well. The reverse, though, I think is a little bit better. Again, you've got a really nice surface texture. And I'm not really seeing too much that is discouraging or disqualifying on the reverse, especially for a New Orleans. You can actually get in close and see most of the detail on the eagle's talons. You've got a reasonable breast feather strike. And again, nothing really disqualifying on the surface. But coming back to the obverse, I think this more than anything right here, the number of marks and abrasions, the the density, I think. Yes, Edwin, she's got whiskers. I think this one probably is not going to be worthy of submission. So I think we're just going to have to put her in a separate pile. She is probably going to end up as inventory. Excuse me. Now, the next coin, I love this one. This may not be the highest grade coin we'll see today, but check this out. Look at the colors and the toning on this. Now, let me hit some more light on it so we can actually see and appreciate the toning and the luster on that. Look at that. That is an original mint surface, because you're literally watching the luster pattern cartwheel underneath the color and the toning. And that tells you that it is still an original mint surface that has not been altered. Hang on, let me see if I can get this a little better focused. Well, that's not what I wanted. All right, come here. There it is. All right, now look at that coloration. And more importantly, look at that luster pattern carry all the way through that toning. To me, That's a beautiful looking toner. And I think a reasonably high grade for a New Orleans. Now, on the reverse, I have to tone the lighting down because this one, this surface, this side is not really toned that much. So I think that's kind of an interesting coin all the way around. And I think this one might need to get submitted for potential consideration for grading, just because I think for an 85.0 with that kind of coloration on the obverse, in a slab, I think that's just going to be a nice little coin. And if it happens to grade fairly well, say 63, 64 for a New Orleans coin with toning, I think that might justify the premium. It might not, but we'll see how that goes. Like I say, I think this one is a coin that might deserve some additional consideration for submission to grading. So this is probably going to go in the pile with L2. What do you guys think? Let me know. I'm curious to know what you all think about these coins. As much as you watch me go through the process, I'm definitely interested in your feedback and input. All right, now the best coin of the two rolls, in my opinion, is this gorgeous little 1879 New Orleans that came out of the limited roll. This is L7 from the limited roll. And I think you will understand why this is a favorite. Now, obviously, an 1879-0 is a nice little coin, okay? That is not a common date. That is, I wouldn't call it a key date, but definitely a semi-key date. Not one you see every day. And a coin that I would say is, pretty desirable. Now, for a New Orleans mint coin, I'd have to concede that the strike on this one, probably average. Not a pancake, which is nice. Sometimes you see that really flat hairline that some people refer to as a pancake. And hang on a second. And in this case, that is not a pancake hairline. So I think this coin has a lot going for it for potential submission from that standpoint. I don't know. We'll have to take a closer look in a minute, but the reverse, again, not an outstanding strike. I mean, not a flat eagle's breast, but not well pronounced either. I'd say that's just an average strike for a New Orleans coin. But at the same time, relatively few, marks and abrasions. The surface luster looks beautiful. Clearly a mint state coin. The only question will be, what is an estimated grade on this bad boy? So let's put her on the other scope and get a better idea of just what we are dealing with. So we've got a few minor contact marks down here under the chin and by the star. There are a few abrasions on the cheek, but very light, actually. As Morgans go, I'd have to say this one is relatively mark free. This is a pretty nice little Morgan dollar right here. Now you've got a couple of chatter marks there, couple of minor hits there. Again, some minor noise out here in the field. Nothing too terrible at all. And again, the important area for New Orleans, that is a really nice strike. Now, again, I'm not going to say that that would be considered strong by any means, because I don't think it is. But as New Orleans dollars go, that is not a pancake strike by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm not seeing anything on the obverse of this coin that would prevent, even a 63, 64, possibly a 65. But what does the reverse show? Because this is going to make or break this coin. All right, now, right off the bat, we've got some hits and abrasions under the motto, above the eagle's head right there. I don't think that's going to be terrible from a grading perspective. It's not devastating, and it's not like a lot of marks in a short area or a small area. There are some abrasions. There are some little hairlines here and there. But look at that mint texture. That surface texture right there says everything. That is outstanding. I mean, that's what you're looking for from a mint surface right there. Solid mint mark. A couple of minor marks down there by the dollar and the rim. Now look at the talons on that eagle. And again, for New Orleans, that is pretty impressive. That is not a bad strike overall. And that's really about the worst of it on the reverse right there. So I have to say, overall, this one is a pretty darn nice looking coin. Now, given the impact on the reverse, I don't know. I might have to concede that this coin might max out at about a 63, maybe a 64. I don't know that they would give it a 65 with a mark that bad on the reverse. But at the same time, it's really not severe. And more importantly, it's about the only thing that the reverse has against it as a strike. Because even as you watch the light move around it, that's really not a grade ender as far as I'm concerned. I think that, this is going to be a tough one. I love the coin, and I love the fact that it's an 1879 O. So I have to say that one is going to go for consideration. I mean, that is likely going to have to be graded. Now, here are a few of the other coins that were in those rolls. This was another coin that I thought was kind of interesting. This one is an 1897p. And this one has a really nice surface, although it does have some marks and abrasions on it. But this for me was kind of a standout coin. I mean, again, you look at the quality of that surface, and I have to say that that's not a bad looking coin. I mean, look at the strike on the eagle's breast. That's gorgeous. And the strike on the hairline, not perfect, but pretty decent. And just a few marks and abrasions out in the field. I don't think that's, again, anything terribly horrific. And let's see, what were some other standouts? Ah, yes, okay. Now, S17 was a coin that we had a couple of comments on because it was thought that it might be a van variety with some double die or some doubling on the motto E pluribus unum. Now, unfortunately, I did some further investigation and determined that it is not a doubled obverse. There is no doubling on the liberty, or E pluribus rather. But having said that, as an 82S, again, look at the surface quality on that coin. Look at how beautiful that luster is. There are some minor ticks and abrasions here and there, but I have to say overall, that's really a pretty coin. And look at the quality of the hairline strike. That's what you want to see. Exactly. Great detail is right. Then flip that sucker over and look at this. Now tell me that's not a beautiful looking coin. Again, luster cartwheeling like crazy all over the place. On the reverse, I'm really not seeing any surface imperfections to speak of. And again, beautiful breast feather detail. I mean, this one is worthy. Hang on, I gotta bring this one over here. All right, this one. I mean, look at this. Okay, the surface texture, the mint polish lines. I mean, this is just stupid sick. Look at this. All right, I'll take a little bit of time on this because I think this is worth it. Look at this. Now, those microscopic lines are not cleaning marks. That is dye polishing, or otherwise known as basoning in mint terminology. But that's how you know the surface on that coin is completely intact. That is what mint surfaces look like. So you've clearly got a mint state coin. Now let's evaluate surface imperfections. We do have a few marks here, down below the chin and on the chin itself, but I'm not really seeing that as a problem, frankly. A couple of small marks on the cheek, a couple of small marks out in the field. And again, look at that mint texture. That's just stupid. That's why you saw that remarkable cartwheel luster before. All right, again, a couple of very small little imperfections right there. A little bit of chatter there behind the cap. Again, look at that remarkable dye polish marks. Beautiful date. And while not a perfect hairline, oof, that's pretty darn nice. And on the reverse, again, dye polish marks, beautiful shine and luster. Not really seeing too much in the way of imperfections. Wow, that's just gorgeous. Look at the detail on the breast feathers. Now that's an 82S that I'm going to be torn on because the grading submission math on this coin is probably going to be a little bit challenging. This is not one of the more, difficult dates or expensive dates for the Morgan Dollar series. So, I mean, I don't know how high the value on this will go, but from what I'm seeing, I think this could realistically be, a solid 63, maybe a 64, and possibly even a 65, because I'm really not seeing a lot that could potentially knock this one down. I don't know. What do you guys think? Yeah, thank you, Theta. I agree. I like this one too. This was not one I had initially picked out for submission, but I think I'm going to have to add this one to the pile for possible grading consideration. Yeah, man, I don't know. That one's got possibilities. Okay, so we'll put that over there in that pile. Let's see, what do we got? We got okay. This one was another nice coin. Now, this was L1 from the limited roll. This was the first coin out of the limited roll. And this is an 1878S. So, obviously you've got a first year San Francisco that, again, I think has a real nice luster quality to it. The only potential question mark is what's going on the cheek right there. So we'll take a look at that one a little closer up in a minute. But this one, as a first year, well, you've got that nick ding or that rim ding right there at the top above states. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be worthy of submission, so never mind on that one. I back out of that one. All right, let's try S12. I like this 19020. Yeah, that is a little bit better overall. I think we've got some nice surface luster and quality. Oh, hey, Mick. Appreciate you, bud. No worries, man. Thank you. Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, that actually is not a bad looking coin. So I'll bring that one over to the other scope in a minute, but I think this one might get a further look. What do you guys think? You like this one or no? I like the idea that it's a little bit of a less common New Orleans. All right, I'm loving the luster and the surface quality. We're going to have to take a little bit closer look at how good that strike looks. I don't think that's going to be the best strike in the world. So, what do we have? Yeah, unfortunately, that's a little bit more of what I would call a pancake right there. That is not a well-defined hairline. It's not terrible, but it's not one that I think is going to be worthy for consideration for grading. And honestly, yeah, looking at the cheek, I'm gonna have to nix this one right there. That one, don't even need to look at that one any further. So, all right, let's take a look at this one. This is another coin from the limited roll. This is L4. And I think this one has a little bit better potential, frankly. This is an 1899 New Orleans. And again, I'm looking at that surface luster and texture. That is just beautiful. Couple of minor marks and abrasions, but I don't think that is really anything to be terribly concerned with. We'll see on the other scope how deep those marks are. Now, they are a little bit more concentrated than I would like, so that potentially may. I'll send you all the rejects. There you go. Yeah, I mean, oh, I'm on the fence on this one. I'm going to need to see this one on the other scope before I can make a determination. But again, I love the cartwheel luster. I'm enjoying the surface quality. I'm not seeing any major hits. Yeah, I mean, overall, hard not to like what I'm seeing. But let's see what we've got over here. Because this is the real test. So we've got some hits on the neck and in the field. And yeah, that's a little bit more than I would like on the jaw. But a lot of that is just kind of rub and not necessarily impact. So I can probably live with that. I don't know that that would be a terrible grade limiter. It might limit me to a 63, 64. And on a bad day, a 62, I guess, because of some of these. But again, those are, relatively few and far between. All right, there's a hit on the eye. Yeah, a little bit of chatter. And for New Orleans, again, not the worst strike I've ever seen. Not the best, but there is a little bit of detail there. And that's how you know that it's not wear. It's just a weak strike. Tobacco, what I'm going to do is once I have all of my submission candidates put aside, I'm actually going to do a separate video. And what I will do is go through the process of evaluating the cost considerations before making final determinations on whether to submit or not. And then we'll take a look at the difference between standard and economy. And we'll make a determination at that point. So, yes, but I appreciate that. Yes, Gold Shield and economy, most likely. Yep. But again, I don't know for sure it'll be PCGS. What I may do is submit one to, CAC. I may submit one to NGC, submit one to PCGS. But I don't know. I'll reserve that judgment for the final video. But, I have to say, overall, I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing on this coin. I mean, I'm even seeing some talon detail. Yeah, almost a pancake. You like me. Ew, I like you too, bud. So, I mean, there are some hits on the breast and the wings, but, not the best strike in the world, I have to admit. And a little bit of noise out here. But, again, whoops, what did I do? Whoop, went to the wrong microscope. Sorry. For an 1899 New Orleans, I don't know. I think that could be. I got to do the math on that one. That might be worth consideration. Um, what do you guys think? Let me know. I'm curious because I think from what I'm seeing on the surface of this one, I don't know. I don't think it's disqualifying. This could easily be a 63, maybe even a 64. I mean, I've got slabs graded 63, 64, even 65 that look rougher than this. Now, the only question is the strike going to be enough to hold the grade back? And I'm not convinced it is, frankly. Yeah, I mean, I think that is a decent looking coin with, a decent potential. So, all right, we'll move that one over to the consideration pile. All right. Now, this is another coin out of the limited roll. This is L5. And this is an 1890 Philadelphia. And this was another really attractive coin. I mean, look at the luster flow on this coin. There are a few marks on the cheek, but I don't know that they're disqualifying. We'll look at the other scope in a minute, but that is a pretty looking coin. And a little bit of a less common date. I mean, not rare by any stretch, but not, not one you see every day. So an 1890 Philadelphia with a decent strike, not outstanding, not the best in the world, but I'd say a good solid average strike. Real nice luster flow. And no major surface abrasions or disqualifying marks. There's a little bit of chatter behind the cap in the field and behind her head. But again, if you've ever seen a slab coin graded 64, 65, even 66, you will see marks like that. That is not unusual at all. Pretty good strike for Philly. Pretty good strike for any Morgan, frankly. And the reverse, just as solid. I mean, that's... All right, let's get her over here because this deserves a closer look. This one I may talk myself into or out of right over here. All right, so right off the bat, I'm trying to evaluate the number, severity, and concentration of marks. And unfortunately, I'd have to say that right there is going to be disqualifying for this coin. That is going to do one of two things. That is either going to result in a details grade for damage, scratching, or it is going to severely limit your grade to probably no more than a 60 or a 61. I think this is still clearly a mint state coin. I mean, look at the luster texture or surface texture and luster on that coin. That is gorgeous. But I think that right there is going to be disqualifying, unfortunately. Yeah, I agree, Edwin. So that is unfortunate. But that one falls out of consideration. All right, the last coin I will do in this live eval. Um, this was another coin out of the limited roll. This was L8. And this was another favorite of mine. This is another, not rare date by any stretch, but a 1903 Philadelphia, a little bit less common coin. And I'd say this one has, I hear you, tobacco. But I think this one has a lot of potential. Um, Look at the luster flow. You do have a hit on the cheek, but I don't think that's anything too terrible. It's not, yeah, sorry about that. Here we go. I have to be careful about my lighting because I get colored tints depending on how reflective the coin is and my polarization levels. But yeah, well, there's a little hit on the chin there. But again, I don't know that any of those are really disqualifying for a decent grade because I've got a Mint State 67 that's got a mark on the chin that is pretty prominent. So, you know, one or even two marks that are of a decent size, but if that's really all there is and they're not concentrated together, um, I don't know. This coin looks pretty nice to me. I'm having a hard time finding anything. I mean, there are a couple of very small hits in the field, but man, that is gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, even close up, that's a coin with some character. All right, let's take a look over here and get a much better look at what we're dealing with. Okay, so all right, we do have a line on the cheek right there, but I don't know that that's disqualifying, and I don't know that that would really limit the grade too much. It's a little longer than I would like to see, but again, look at the surface texture and luster. I mean, clearly a mint state coin. The only question is how bad would they hit us for that particular mark right there? And I'm thinking that as I look at the coin overall, I don't think they're going to destroy us on the grade. I mean, there are some rub marks and some light abrasions, but I'm not seeing anything that really disturbs me. Yeah, it might lose a grade, but I'm still seeing potentially 63, 64. I mean, 62 if they really want to hit us hard, but I mean, looking at the reverse, I mean, I think this is where this coin makes it up because I'm really not seeing a lot that would be a negative to grading on the reverse, at least not so far. A little minor noise right there under America, but not that bad. Couple of light marks on the breast and on the wing. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think this is a solid 63, potential 64. I'm really not seeing anything disqualifying on the reverse at all. So, um, yeah, I think we've got a solid potential submission candidate right here. I like it. I mean, when you're seeing luster flow like that and a lack of any real major imperfections other than that one mark on the cheek, I think that's the worst. So, what we end up having to do is we'll do the submission math in the next video where I do go through the process of estimating a grade for each one of these. Then we look at what the price guide value is for those estimated grades. We take a look at the cost to submit for standard or economy. And then we try to do the economics. We'll do the math, the submission math. Does it make sense to pay the money to submit the coin to get that grade? Hopefully. And unfortunately, you've also got to consider, well, all right, what if it misses that grade? What if it misses that grade by 2? Is it still worth taking the risk and submitting that coin? Oh, my pleasure, Theta, or Mick, I should say. Always appreciate being able to show off, what we're able to do. And I'm curious now that I've got you guys here, what do you think of this new format? I mean, obviously on Whatnot, I'm able to make good use of my microscopes and whatnot, do the best I can with the portrait orientation, but considering what I'm able to do over here, I personally really like being able to do this. So, what do you guys think? Is this something that you would like to see me do more of? I can certainly, do these live shows like this. The stream will still be available on demand. I can also, produce an edited video out of this. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that because for me, I think, when you can take a coin and look at it at this level and show it full screen landscape orientation and get up close and personal with it, to me, that is much more meaningful than showing a coin, in the short format or the vertical version, vertical format, I should say, because you can't really appreciate a coin the same way as when you're looking at it truly full screen like this. Now, I don't know, how many of you are watching on a computer or TV or what, but I will tell you that if you're watching it on a large screen, computer, television, tablet, in my opinion, there is no better way to see these coins up close and personal and truly be able to take advantage of what the microscope is able to show us and really be able to evaluate a coin the way it should be. Now, again, if you're trying to grade a coin, you're probably not going to want to be quite that close up because, the graders are looking at 5x magnification. They're not looking at 20 or 50. That's just not a reasonable magnification level, to evaluate a grade reasonably. This is a much more appropriate level when you can still see surface marks and abrasions, but you're not looking at literally the microscopic surface texture of the coin. Now, if you are evaluating whether or not a coin has been cleaned or whether or not a coin has legitimate mint surfaces, well, yes, then you absolutely want to be this far in and get as close as you can. And, frankly, I can get really freaking ridiculous with it. Look at this. It may take a second for the microscope to focus, but yeah, I mean, now that is microscopic surface texture. And those lines, some people might say, well, that's cleaning. No, it's actually not. What that is dye polish marks, or what they call at the mint, bassoning, dye bassoning. And what that does is that microscopic surface texture, those flow lines from when the coin was minted at the mint, struck at the mint, is what allows that luster to flow like this in that gorgeous, beautiful cartwheel. That is how you know a coin is truly mint state. And the other side is no less spectacular. Your coins are detailed, but you get personal. Nope, I hear you. Hey, there's nothing wrong with a double loop. I agree. However, for what I'm trying to do, there is nothing that beats being able to get in up close like this. I can't broadcast through a loop the way I can through a microscope. Now, I've done it. You can hold a loop up to the camera and approximate it. Yes, with a light in it, of course, because lighting is critical. If you don't have adequate lighting, you're not going to see garbage. You're not going to see anything. But for what I'm trying to do and broadcast quality streaming, the microscope is king. I mean, it's irreplaceable to get real fine detail, surface structure, texture, any kind of damage, anything negative or anything of, import to the detail of the coin itself. That is where this becomes key. Because let's face it, I can bring in a coin like this and I can actually focus. There you go. And I can zoom way in and I can show you that, yeah, that's a nice looking coin with relatively few marks, little ding on the chin, but nice luster. But you can't really see that coin. And that's right. Aiming a high power loop is a pain, and getting the focal sweet spot in the right place is miserable. And trying to hold a coin still like this so that the camera can focus and you can actually see it, but that doesn't give you any real detail. That's not giving you the kind of view that you really need and that you can get over here. And now that I've got this one all the way close up, I mean, look at this. Now, you want to know what denticles are supposed to look like? Well, there you go. You want to know what an E looks like that's been hit with another coin? Well, there you go. Do you want to see what the breast feather or eagle talons actually look like? What kind of detail do we really have on this coin? Well, there you go. You got a small hit on the one side, but you get some pretty decent detail. I mean, that's how you look at a coin, in my opinion, anyway. Now, not everybody does this. The technical requirements, are a real obstacle. The computing requirements is an obstacle. I had to upgrade my computer. I've upgraded microscopes several times. The learning curve is a major pain in the butt, but I think overall it's worth it at the end of the day to be able to provide an image that looks like this and fully evaluate a coin and bring you in on the process. Now you can see exactly what I can see, and we can make that decision together. So next up, I'm going to do the submission evaluation video where we're going to take the, what do we got? We've got 5 coins over here. 5? Yeah, 5 coins that I believe are worthy of further consideration for submission to grade. And we'll do the math. We'll do an estimated grade on each one of them. And then we will go through the process of the submission math and determine which, if any, will actually get submitted. And we'll decide which service to submit to. Yep, the gray book headache, exactly. Mick, if you are looking for a turntable, I hear you. Hang on one second. All right, so here's what I use. I purchased it off of Amazon. The reason I really like it, well, there's a couple of reasons, but number one is it actually runs slow enough, thank you, that when I'm running the turntable, it's not going so fast that you can't really, make out details on the coin. Now, the other reason I like it is because it has a nice little remote control. So I can hit a button and boom, now my turntable is off. Or boom, now it's back on. I can also increase the rotation speed. How fast do you want it to spin? So, I mean, it gives you a nice little variable rate that, typically I start and use it at a very slow level, but it's also nice to have it. And more importantly, I like the idea that, it's remote operated. I can turn it off just that quick or adjust it remotely just that quick. So, all right, guys, I think I'm going to end this live stream. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Please go ahead and watch the other Woolworth videos that led up to this evaluation live, and watch for the next submission grading or the grading submission video where I will go through the math and we will actually submit. What I have above the turntable, Mick, is what is known as a dyno light, and that is not a cheap microscope. That is about a $1,500 job right there. Now, not only that, but it is mounted to this display, which is also Dynolite, which is also has this mounted on it, but I'm not using currently because I'm using the extension to sit above the turntable. And what's cool about this is this. Hold on one second. All right, what I can actually do is, this is a nice little platform that I also paid extra for that sits right into a groove right here on the base. I can then tighten that up. And then instead of having the coin on the turntable, this is another little turntable right here. And I can manually turn it slowly, or I can move the whole platform vertically and horizontally underneath the microscope so that I am able to adjust that view as well. But like I say, I like having the ability to place it above the turntable and, utilize it that way. But when we really need to get up close and personal with a coin, that's when I will be taking it from this platform over to that one and put the Dino Light right up close to it. And that's when we really get to see some amazing macro photography. So, all right, everybody, I appreciate you. Please comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know which submission candidates you think are the most likely to be graded or should be graded. And any suggestions you have, let me know. I look forward to hearing from you all and appreciate you all watching the stream. Take care, everybody.